everyone, and welcome to the Toronto Public Library's Fairview branch. Fairview Library is located on Indigenous land. This is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, aka the Six Nations Confederacy, the Wendat, the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. Toronto Public Library gratefully acknowledges these Indigenous nations for their guardianship of this land. We'd like to remind and reaffirm as Torontonians and as Canadians our accountability to these Indigenous nations and to all Indigenous peoples and communities living in Toronto. This land is also part of the Dish with One Spoon territory, a treaty between the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, aka the Six Nations Confederacy, the Anishinaabe, and allied nations, to peaceably share and care for this land, its waters, and all the biodiversity of the Great Lakes region. All those who come to live and work here are responsible for honoring this treaty in the spirit of peace, friendship, and respect. Thank you.
What's up, everyone? All right, let's rock and roll. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us for what I think is going to be a very important discussion, the first of its kind in Canada. I am Murtz Jaffer, the former host of Reality Obsessed and currently an associate producer at the morning show on Global.
And I am Hartley Jafine, a professor at McMaster University, where I teach a course on Survivor called Surviving Survivor: Insights from Reality TV for Real Life. Welcome, everyone.
All right, you're not here to see us. Let's get to it. So we've had a couple of guest changes. We've had a couple of substitutions. We all saw the winter storm yesterday, so hopefully we're still going to have a great panel. I know that, so hopefully everyone's down with that. Let's get it started. Our first guest is Big Brother Canada's Suzette Amaya.
Welcome, Suzette. And next, we have from Big Brother US Season 23, Frazier.
Also joining us from Big Brother Derek's season is Azah Awasum.
And last but not least, the two folks that brought us here tonight, Wendell, Holland, and Brice, Izyah. Welcome, Wendell and Brice.
All right, everyone can take a seat. So it's going to be a very informative discussion. I feel like Wendell is the only one who has a cheat sheet because he knew about the script beforehand, so everybody else is just like winging it. But I think we all know why we're here. We're going to talk about race and reality television. We're going to talk about the Survivor Diversity Campaign and a lot of different elements that I think that you don't really see when you watch these shows that we all love. Survivor, Big Brother, Amazing Race, The Challenge, my favorite Perfect Match right now. It's all gonna come up tonight. So I think our first category is going to be casting. So we're gonna talk a little bit about how there's been an evolution in casting. You know, how it went from, there were basically 3 different ways that you could get on a reality show. You could submit a tape, you could go to an open call, or you were recruited. And so I think that's where we want to start off. And so we're going to start with our entire panel. If you could just tell us how you got on your show. And we're going to start down the line with Suzette.
Okay, hello, Gaelic Kasla. My name is Suzette Amaya. I'm from the Guasel and Naquatau Nation. I am Cree, Coast Salish, Nishka, and Kwakwakiwak. So I come from 4 different Indigenous communities. And casting? Okay, well, I was recruited, and not very, so I've never actually said it publicly. I did apply. I worked really hard. I'm a super fan from Big Brother USA, but they found me in Winnipeg. They followed me on my journeys. I'm an Indigenous public speaker. I travel all across the nation. I've been to 450 Indigenous communities doing wellness workshops. And they set up the stage, and I thought I was going to a casting call, and it wasn't a casting call. They were there to recruit me, And so I was really fortunate enough to be able to represent. I work in the entertainment industry for Indigenous peoples in music and radio. And through that process, because I'm such a super fan as well, they found me. And just like everybody else, I was watching the live feeds and on social media and sharing so much information about how I wanted to be on the show so bad. So when the opportunity came to Canada, it was huge because they just never seen people like me on television. And so I was really honored to be able to be a part of that process. So thank you.
I'm not gonna lie, that's pretty hard to top. My name is Derek Frazier. I'm from Philadelphia, PA. When I went through the casting process, it was one of those things where there was no seasons that, African American descent has one big brother, regular big brother. I understand All Stars, Tamar Braxton won, but regular big brother. So when I was going through the casting, I made sure to say that and say my reasons. I wanted to represent being a gay man, also being a big guy, and also being a black guy. So I went through the casting process. I submitted a tape randomly, and I was like, nothing's gonna happen. I'm just doing this for fun and seeing what happens. And lo and behold, I got the call, and it was just, which I know a lot of people don't like to hear, but I was kind of like, shot all the way to the end. I kind of knocked it out the park where they were like, we have to have you on this show. So, and the rest was history. And that's all I have right now.
Hi, everyone. My name is Azah Awasum. My first time applying was not like that. I am a super fan of the show. I watched all the seasons, and I spent 8 minutes just talking about how much I love the show. And I tried to package myself how I thought they would like me. I straightened my hair. I wanted to come across as the young person looking for fun in the summer. And they did not call me back. The next year, I took some time. I came as myself. I talked about my culture, my heritage, having a grandfather that had 6 wives. Yes, he got busy. Coming from a polygamous family and being of African descent. And they hadn't seen those stories being told on television. And the casting director picked me and kind of pushed me through to the end. And it was a completely different experience before by being my authentic self.
Hello, everyone. I'm Brice, Izyah, and first of all, thank you so much for being here with us tonight. We really appreciate it. My casting story is I started watching Survivor when I was in college, which is only like 3 years ago.
2 decades ago.
And Survivor came on Thursday nights, and I was watching the show and screaming like, oh my God, I can't believe that happened. And then Jeff came on the screen and was like, we want to see you. Apply now. So I was like, you talking to me? So I got my phone out, and my name is Brice Izyah. I've never seen someone like myself on the screen before. I would kill it. I would throw shade. I would give you what you want. And, I recorded 3 minutes. I went, boop, tried to send it, and it was like, error. I said, oh, no, error. I was like, oh, my God, what's happening? At this point, it's like 2 in the morning, and I need to get up for work. So I just sent in 30 seconds, because that's all I could figure out how to email. And the rest is history.
How's it going, everybody? I am Wendell. First, I want to thank Murtz and Hartley. Thank you guys so much for all that you put in today. Thank you, guys.
And our team. We have a lot of people working with us, so
yes,
everyone.
The whole team. And again, thank you all for coming. As far as casting, I was a Survivor fan for a long time. I watched many seasons, and I started applying probably in the 20s of seasons. I started watching season 18, and I was like, man, this is a show that I would love to be on. And I never got any calls for a long time. And I remember going to casting calls. I remember sending in videos and doing everything to try to make it happen. And ultimately, at some point, they found a video of mine, and they cast me for a show that they were starting called Hunted. It was a show that they were bringing over from the UK. And they were like, all right, I mean, we probably don't want him for Survivor, so we'll put him on this new show that we're just throwing out there. And I went to casting for that. And while I made it through that whole week of casting, And finally, I was in the CBS, they bring you to the CBS lot, and you sit in front of all these bigwigs on the last day, and you gotta, make it in front of those people. I don't even remember who all those people were, but a bunch of people in suits. And when I was waiting to go in that interview, Survivor was on in the room, and it was co-run. And I remember watching Ty, and I'm like, this is the show I want to be on. This is what I was applying for, but I'm here for this show, Hunted, I guess, because I don't know why I said yes to that. I guess, it was my first call for TV, so I'm like, let me just do it. Throughout that week, they said that I made it onto the show, and then a few weeks later, they said I would be an alternate. So that was kind of like a blessing in disguise. And I continued to remind my casting director, hey, I wanted Survivor. Survivor's my thing. That's what I really am passionate about. And then I'd say like a year later, they called me for Survivor. But I will say, sometimes there are what I like to call unicorns. There are people that you can submit a janky 30-second video of you just being you, right? You just showing you're a unicorn. You're one of those characters that just stands out. You're just one of those magnetic, dynamic, like awesome characters. I'd say Derek.
Thank you, Wendell. Thank you.
You knew, he knew. Derek and Brice are those people, you see them anywhere and you're like, these guys need to be on TV. I was more like a regular type of person, and so it took me a lot longer, but ultimately I think I got on at the right time, so that's my casting story.
Well, thank you all for sharing your casting journey. And certainly casting in the show has evolved over the years. And, in thinking about some of the questions and the process of going through casting, going back to Survivor Season 4, Vesepia Tauri, the winner of Survivor Season 4, talked about how when she was going through the casting process, they asked her questions like, how would you feel if you're edited as the angry black woman? And it makes me think, Azah, about what you were talking about, how you're changing your hair to create these videos. And so one of the questions that we have maybe to you, Azah, is when you're in the audition process and you're performing, how aware of you is your body, your kind of the performance of who you are on display? Are you thinking of that as you're making the pitch to be on your show?
I think as a person of color, that's something that everyone goes through. You always are extremely cognizant of how you appear to people, of how what you might give off to people, and I think I did that, but I think I overthought that the first time. And I took a different approach the second time. I said I was just going to be my unadulterated, pure self that cusses like a sailor, that has terrible experiences with men. I just was my complete, authentic self in every single type of the way. And I was very just delighted to find that the casting producers actually loved that. And I would encourage that for everyone else. Now, in this time and age, in media, people of color can be their complete, true, unadulterated selves, and they're profiting off of it. Look at Cardi B being genuine. Look at all these people who can be genuine. And I think for so long, we wanted to kind of fit in a type of mold, but we don't have to do that anymore. And I was very happy that I didn't have to do that in this experience.
For me on Big Brother, because it was season 1, like I'm OG, that's a long time ago. And this was before the word reconciliation came and before 215 of the discoveries of indigenous people found in residential school sites. I had to pitch myself too. I was like, even though I was a recruit, I still had to put in the work and say, look, I had to sell myself like I'm indigenous, but people think I look Polynesian. People think that maybe I'm Filipino or Spanish. And I said, I'm big girl. I don't see these kind of girls on TV. So I had to put in the work and authentically be myself, but sell it to them where, hey, you know what? People are gonna recognize that I'm a mother. I'm a life giver. I'm indigenous. And we are diverse peoples. We are diverse. We have mixed heritages. And so I think that in today's society, we're growing, and I think that these kind of shows want to represent the community and the viewers, and I think that all of us represent the community.
In old school, like Survivor casting, old school Big Brother casting, we sort of know that like there's certain roles that you need to play. They need to have like the 25-year-old like hot girl. They need to have the comic relief. They need to have the strong alpha male. My next question is for Brice and Wendell. Brice, we're going to start with you. How conscious were you of any potential character that they wanted you to play? And is that difficult to navigate? Like, is it difficult to navigate who you are under the lens of someone else?
I would answer that question absolutely. I feel like if you watch Big Brother, if you watch Survivor, you know there's an archetype of who they want to be on Survivor. And if you don't see yourself in any of those people, you tend to want to be like what you see, because you feel like that is what's going to get you casted. And for me, I felt like I saw no one like me. And I'm like, where is the Brice at? Or where is the someone else at? And so for casting, it really made it difficult, but it also energized me, because I'm like, I know if this gets to the right person, I would be on, or this could definitely change. And I think as casting has evolved, when you get more diverse casting and someone sees someone that looks like myself, a Azah, a Wendell, then they're like, oh, maybe that could be me. And it really kind of opens up. And as we watch Survivor, I think of like Davey from David and Goliath. He like calls himself a blurred, a black nerd. That's something that we haven't seen anywhere. And it's because we are getting more and more diverse that people can see themselves or recognize that like, maybe I should apply for this show. I know that I could kill it. So I definitely think it plays a huge part, because for me, when I was on casting, the only person that I could think of at the time was a castaway named Colton. He was a gay white man, and I was like, I wouldn't play the game anything like that. And why is it that it's always the Coltons that get on? Mm-hmm. So I really wanted to make sure that if I were to get on, I would be nothing like him, but I would be lying if I said that during my casting process, I was like, maybe I should play up that I'm going to be a villain, because that's what works for Colton. So it definitely gave me pause, because I'm like, I don't know really what I should do here. But Jeff said to me, he wants me. So I was like, I'm going to just give it a go.
How'd that go for you, Brice?
It worked out. I'm here today in Toronto.
I think for me, I was the only black male on my cast, and I don't know what they were looking for in casting me. I guess they had to fit that black male. They need somebody in there. But Jeff told me numerous times that he had to fight for me to get on the show. Like, I don't know who it was, but he has told me, he said, Wendell, I went in Les Moonvez's office and fought for you to get on the show. So ever since he told me that, I mean, he told me that, I don't know if he told me before I got on, but whenever he let me know of that, I'm just like, all right, this is a show that I love so much, and I want to do right by this show and whatnot. So like, and a lot of people know that I didn't love my season 40 edit so much, but it's still something that like this show is what got me on a national stage, and if I can do things like this and give back to the show, that would be great. But being the one black man on this season, I just had to be a different version of myself. I felt like I couldn't be my true self. And I'm willing to bet we're going to get to a question like this, but really it was a matter of me doing things like holding my tongue and hearing certain things that might be microaggressions or terrible words that people call black people, and not really communicating how much that word hurts, or trying to say, if I hear someone singing a song and using the N-word, I'm like, hey, you can't really do that. You know, I feel it like inside me, I want to explain the why. And I want to say all these things, but being a player on this dream of mine, my first time ever playing, I don't know any ramifications or repercussions or anything. I don't know if that person might take that, find a group of people that don't look like me and vote me out because of it. So I had to, you know, kind of curb the Wendell that wants to speak out about these things, but not really speaking out with like a force, but more like educating and like, hey, you're a friend of mine, I want to talk to you about this. But in a game like that, I didn't feel like I could as the one black male on the show.
Certainly we're going to get into those conversations throughout this panel. And Brice, you know, you talking about the Coltons who are cast. Later on, we're going to touch on why the Coltons of the world are getting cast and why you felt it was so challenging for a player like yourself to be cast. And we want to shift to our next topic, which is representation when playing the game. Because casting, like playing, has a lot of representation in terms of how things play out in casting and the way things play out in the game echo the way things play out in university campuses or boardrooms or in political spaces. People are acutely aware of how they're being observed by others, how their actions are being understood, and on a show that's being broadcast nationally, how the viewers at home are interpreting your words, your talking heads, and your actions. And we pulled a quote from season 4 of Survivor. Sean Rector talks about how when you're a person of color and you're the only one, everybody else can just be themselves. We have to be ourselves, but then hold back a bit. And so, Derek, you talked about how in Big Brother 23, in your season, there was the cookout that was designed so that a BIPOC player could be crowned the winner, the first BIPOC winner of Big Brother. And that was a history making in the history of the show. And so, Derek, to you or to Azah, how does awareness of race, either speaking for yourself or speaking for others, how does that impact how players enter the game and start to form alliances and build relationships with each other?
So let me first by saying, coming into the Big Brother house, I already had a plan that I was going to work with POCs off the bat, just because of not having, our first, African American winner. But when you're in the game of Big Brother and everyone's looking at you and judging you, I feel like BB23 was a little different because there were so many of us where we were really acting like ourselves, where we did not have to, at times, put on an act. But that was only when we were with each other. We still had to hold back a little bit, in front of, our house guests. And I think that's just because of how the world is. And, I feel like I'm very thankful that we had all the different races in our season, because it really did allow us to kind of have those good times and be able to have those tough conversations. Now, when it comes to how society is watching you from the outside and, you're trying to tie it in how the real world is, I will say the one thing I did learn is going on Big Brother, you really do learn a lot about yourself. And when you take everything away, somebody said to me the other day, literally yesterday, Tiffany said to me in the car, we didn't even have windows. Those little things make you really look at life and how life is. And when you're cut off from everything else, you have these real conversations. You really see people for who they are. So if I'm going off topic, I'm sorry. But I will say that the cookout was designed to ensure that someone that looked like me could win this game. That's never happened.
Does it say something, Azah, to you that you would have to create the cookout for that to happen?
So I don't, going into the Big Brother house, yes, because I don't think we did anything differently that's happened season after season after season. People look at another person and they want to work with them, or someone that looks like them, they want to work with them. Majority of the alliances have always been white. So what did we do different that no one else did? We kind of just, if we saw each other, I knew, let's work together and see what happens. And lo and behold, it happened. And it was a beautiful thing. And I'll never forget the moment when it was all 6 of us and Azah was crying. And I remember being like, this was worth it. Everything we did was worth it, and no one can ever take that feeling away. And it wasn't a win for us, it was also a win for everybody else. Because I would love to just see, next season, let it be a Hispanic, individuals working together, and it is what it is, just how it is, until time changes.
And Azah, I'd love to hear from you as well. And before we do, I think, Derek, your point around how alliances get formed and the composite of that alliance is perceived differently, unfairly by the audience. That one group forms an alliance and it's an alliance. Yes. Another group forms an alliance and it's an alliance. And that is very much dependent on who the bodies of the players are who make up that alliance. Yeah, thank you. Azah.
Yes, when I came in the house, I definitely want us to have our first Black American winner myself. will be quite honest. I wasn't thinking, I was considering race, but I wasn't really thinking about that. But it was a very unique season in the fact that there were 6 of us. And what started off first night as some type of insurance policy very quickly turned into an actual strategy. And what separated the alliance from everything else was a mission. We all were people who had seen the show, and we had seen the chemies. We had seen people before who had been maligned, who had been treated unfairly, who were giving a lot of microaggressions, and we'd seen the dark history that that season had had. And as a result, it was no longer a game anymore, but it was a mission, and it was a purpose, and it was something bigger, and that was the thing that tied us together, even when we didn't get along as much. So representation was something that wasn't as important to me at the time. I have to be honest. I wanted to win $750,000. But it very quickly, within 3 weeks, became something more, and it was just so much more than a game for us by the time we got to the end.
And Suzette, we actually want to turn the spotlight on you. You made a very powerful decision during that first HOH. A move that I don't think I'd ever seen before. You know, like with no fear, you nominated 2 alpha males, typically the players that would go to the end, typically the players that would dominate the competition in Emmett and Tom. Can you give us a little bit of background into the strength that went into that decision? Because, I mean, I've covered reality for a long time. I'd never seen anyone have the guts to do it.
Thank you, yes. I want to revert back to that question, though, because I'm one of the first Indigenous people on these types of shows. We've seen an evolution now where we've had Kiefer Colson and we've had Ashley Collingbull. We've had other Indigenous people since myself. But it is a huge weight on an Indigenous person to come onto these shows. Because if you look at yourselves now, how many Indigenous folks are your friends? How many Indigenous people do you know? How many Indigenous people do you know their histories? So when you come into these games, you may be the first Indigenous person they've ever met. You're the first Indigenous person that it's like the unknown. And as an Indigenous person, we don't have super celebrities. We don't have presidents. We don't have premiers. We don't have Indigenous folks who own mansions and cars. We don't have equity as Indigenous people. And let's be honest, we don't have representation. So for me to come on these shows, it's when you talk about what's it like coming into a house, you are holding the weight of the hopes and dreams of an entire nation of Indigenous people. And so the experience is a lot different because you want to create partnerships and friends and converse with people, and you're the unknown. You're the Indigenous person. They don't know. They don't know the history because it wasn't taught. And so going on these games, you are fighting stereotypes. You're fighting so many different things to have a voice, to be visible, to be known. And then, you know, so when I think about like these types of games, you have to have thick skin to be on these kinds of shows. And so when I went into the house, also I do want to say about the casting, when they cast shows, some people have good seasons where they have very open-minded folks in the house with you or in Survivor where they're open to hearing about each other's culture. My experience will be completely different than Kiefer's, where people were, tell me about your language, tell me about your culture, tell me about who you are. I want to know you as an Indigenous person. Where me, I couldn't even say, hi, I'm from this nation. So the experience is different from season to season based on the people that they put in the collective of who's playing the game. So you can't even look at, everyone's experience is completely different based on the people they put in this collective. When I went in the show, I walked in and I saw 2 males that were the alpha males. And there's no way, in any way, shape, or form, can I make it even to jury with 2 strong alpha males. People, and I'm Indigenous, and these are 2, let me be honest, there are people who are born with privilege, there are people who are born with generational wealth, and there are people who are born with so much more. So I just felt, let's put them on the block. Let's put them on the block and let you guys figure out with your own 2 eyes, can you beat these 2 very athletic men in a competition? Because I know I can. And unfortunately, everyone didn't see it that way.
Well, thank you for sharing that, Suzette. Thank you, thank you. Because what you're talking about is just the added layering of playing the game. It's not just you're not playing the game, you're coming in and now playing the game as someone who's Indigenous, now possibly like you're talking, possibly or really representing that culture for the house, for the viewing audience, for Canadians. So that's a lot to navigate as you play, and that kind of goes to our next question, because in thinking about the show and some of the histories of Big Brother and in Survivor, Murtz and I were thinking about and reflecting on moments of the show that happen in the show that really have major impacts in the real world. And so thinking about Brice, you already mentioned players like Colton, who's using some very defamatory language that is very hateful and harmful. And we were talking about in season 19 of Survivor in Samoa, there are two characters very early on in the season, Jason and Ben. And Ben is using very inflammatory racist language. And Jason says to his tribe, hey, if Ben is not voted out, I'm going home. I'm quitting this game. Because he felt that it wasn't worth playing this game that way. And we wanted to kind of go to you, Brice, and talk about the tension of playing a game for $1 million, playing a game show game, and also adhering to your own values of recognizing that representation that you have to carry, or that you might feel like you have to carry. Like you said, you hadn't seen yourself, now you're seeing yourself, and you've got to be that, but also try to navigate the social dynamics of $1 million game.
Yeah, I think that question is it's a difficult one to answer, because I feel like personally, and I can only speak from my own experience, I'm myself every day. So I feel like, yeah, it's a game show, but that's actually how I feel at times when I walk into any room. I'm aware that I'm a Black gay man. And so I was thinking about, when I entered into the show, I'm thinking, I just can remember preparing for it, and it's like, I want to make sure I run, I want to make sure I do puzzles. And as much time as I spent on doing that, I'm spending on, how do I walk in? How do I speak to them? How do I address them? Because that's just, some people, and when we're speaking of privilege, some people have the privilege of walking into a room and just sitting down and don't think anything of it. For me, growing up as a Black, young, gay, queer, I can remember wanting to be excited to go to second grade, because I can't wait, a new teacher, I get to see where I sit, I get a lunchbox. And then I remember waking up and realizing I've got to walk into the classroom when the teacher says, Wendell here, Azah here, Suzette, I have to answer. And so it's such a part of who I am and how I move every day that going into the show, for me, although it was a reality show, it really was a peek into my real life of the things that I have to deal with every day. And maybe for a second or two, I was able to feel like, ooh, I'm playing the game, but then very quickly I would be reminded, one, that I'm the only Black person, two, I'm the only Black gay male. And again, the people during my tribe, some of them never experienced a gay man, some of them never experienced a Black man, and here I am. And it's like, I'm not the picturesque Black man that's supposed to be, and they don't know. So it carries so much weight, because I feel like I struggled. I wasn't myself. And so as much, again, as I prepared to be on Survivor, to play the game, I also was preparing for a list of things that I'm sure everyday people don't even think about. So for me, I don't know if I answered the question, but it's a process, and it's just to be myself. For me, it's not performing for reality TV. For me, it's just literally performing for my life.
Yeah. Thank you.
Wendell, I don't want to rub it in the other players' faces, but you are a winner, and but I want to talk about that win, in the sense that it came down on your season to a tie-breaking vote that Laurel cast, and obviously when you filmed it, you weren't when it aired, there was a lot of online chatter. There was this presumption, and I think that there's a dangerous concept in reality of presumption. Obviously Laurel's going to vote for Wendell. They're both Black. Can you talk a little bit about that? Do you think that it takes something away? Do you think that people didn't credit that? They just assumed Laurel wouldn't vote for Dom? And just the concept of presuming how somebody plays, presuming how somebody would vote, presuming who's going to be in an alliance based on skin color.
Yes. Yes. So when Dom and I got off this island as very good friends with Laurel, as this alliance that went through the whole season, we understood that for a black woman to award a black man the tie-breaking vote in what is considered a more polarized country now, America might take it some kind of way. So Dom and I actively said nothing will break our friendship apart. And we had 8 months, about 8 months or maybe even more, but between when we got off that island and we knew what happened, and the show airing and the finale. So we just made it a point to become closer and closer and closer until this season that we knew was going to be very Dom and Wendell heavy and ultimately end with a black woman awarding a black man the $1 million. So yeah, I saw the comments and I was off of this high of just winning this incredible show. It was my first time ever, I tried to get on the show for so long, and I finally got on, and I finally won. So I didn't feel like anything could kind of take me off of that high. But we all saw the comments, and to me, it's just like, maybe you guys forgot 2 nights prior, I gave Laurel my immunity idol to save her. And maybe you guys didn't see that I made Laurel a fire-making station way far off into the woods, and I would take her there to show her to teach her how to make fire, so that in the event that she is facing anyone at fire, including myself, she would have the best opportunity. There were so many things that weren't shown, but the 3 of us, we were like this. We were so close, but I think there were things that I did that would, elevate my game as far as if Laurel were to vote for someone, I feel like she would vote for me. So we knew it in the climate that was America at the time. We knew what was going on, but we made it a point to stay with the united front, Dom and myself. And to this day, we're very, very close friends. But it hurt me to see. But you know it as a black man. You know that they're gonna. People say so much now. There's so much on Twitter. I hear so much, but I guess you gotta rise above it. You gotta take that on the chin. And the things that I say to like the new survivors or the new reality people, like there's so much hatred online. There's so much, people will attack you for anything. You can't be perfect without being attacked for something. You're too perfect. There are things that people will attack you for, but if you can find a way to just not engage those trolls, or find a way, sadly, to like laugh these things off, it makes it better for your experience, because then they know they didn't get under your skin.
If I could just jump in real quick, because I remember watching Ghost Island with Wendell, and I just remember thinking, well, first of all, my fingers are like twitching, because during that time period, I was on Twitter, and any comment that I saw, I was, not today. But it made me so frustrated, because it's like, when you look at it, and it's Laurel awarding that to him, but again, you're assuming that she's giving it to him because he's black and not on merit.
Exactly.
But I could go to Survivor season 4, 8, 6, 13, 12, 11, and why has this conversation never come up? Mm-hmm. And so it really made me so frustrated. So like my hands are having PTSD.
I don't think it's just limited to race too. I think that there is online a tendency to just diminish, like everybody wants to diminish the win. And I think that that's sort of what we have to break,
Yeah, absolutely. And what you're talking about, Brice, is exactly what Derek, you were talking about around who is part of that group, like who is in that alliance, who is part of that relationship dynamic, where assumptions are made and diminishing happens. And we've talked a lot about the way players and the way fans interact with you on the show. We want to move a bit about talking about the production of the show, because certainly the players perceive and interpret how you're playing the game, but you go do talking heads with producers, and they ask you questions. How are those questions framed? And in terms of talking about race and representation, are the questions framed differently depending on who's sitting in front of them? And that's open to the panel.
I can. Go ahead, Derek.
No, you go ahead.
No, you go
ahead, cousin.
You go ahead.
I will say, kind of to piggyback with what Brice was saying earlier, You know, someone like me, as a unicorn, as Wendell calls me, you know, I got the comedy edit. And, you know, it's just what it was, but it was sad that you didn't see a lot of moves that were being made and lying and deceiving in order to get to where I was at the end. But just to kind of go off of production, they ask questions that are, I'm like nervous, I'm like scared someone's gonna be like, please do not talk about production, like out of nowhere. Like I just got PTSD for a second.
There's a trap door under your seat that will
yeah,
open.
like I just need to hit it and just fall. But they do ask questions about what's happening in that moment. I don't think I've ever felt like they're pursuing a storyline or, you know, setting somebody up for, you know, to be like the person of the show. I feel like whatever you give them, that's what they feed off of, just in my case. But there were times of things that I wanted to talk about that didn't get aired or shown. And it kind of sucks because then you kind of like, well, if they had that missing part, they will understand why this. You know, like, for example, our lovely sister who I love, people didn't understand why me and Tiffany didn't get along so much because it wasn't shown. It just showed like this random fight and that was it. But every time I went into, you know, the diary room, I explained this situation, pulled this up, this is why, but it didn't make sense. So do they control storylines? They do have to make a show, of course. But I think it's important to make sure, how can I say, a word of advice. Whatever you're gonna say, just know it's gonna come back. And when you say it, they will keep on coming and asking about it. So if you don't want something to be talked about, don't talk about it.
Oh, sorry. I think in my experience from what I observed is, I think what needs to keep on happening is casting diverse characters. And I say that because I could tell in production, for me, I felt like I was almost teaching production a lot of things. I had conversation with production where I taught him what colorism was, and I explained to him why my approach was so passive and why I never wanted to kind of step out of my box or be aggressive because of being a dark-skinned person, things that you do are perceived a different type of way. I observed the production kind of really not really knowing how to edit me because they really don't really see that many like just quirky black girls on television like that. So what they got was a lot of great shots of me crying, you know, but it was kind of difficult for them to do that. But what's great about that is that even though they had difficulties, I would say, or they might have difficulties really showing the story from different types of people, as long as we continue to get those people in those rooms, that's how you can get the tide to change. The other step, of course, is making sure that your production is diverse, but the first step is happening by making sure you're having completely different types of people in the rooms and not the same type of people that you see every time. And it's a job that they're learning too. I would say it was an educational experience for them. I can distinctly remember conversations with many people in production and me literally explaining them for the first time what colorism was and the different types of things that happen in the black community.
And Azah, sorry, did it shock you that they didn't know? No. No.
It didn't shock me. No.
It's immunity challenge.
I wouldn't say it shocked me because colorism is something that still our black community has to be educated about. It's something that's extremely nuanced and has a dark history and passively happens in our community every single day. And there's still people in our community who are in denial that it happens, even though it's an innate part of us and has been part of our history, our dark history for quite some time. So it didn't surprise me, but what was great about that is being able to educate that those stories can be put out so that more people can know.
I want to thank you for bringing up your experience on Big Brother because I remember when I went home and watched the show, I was like, oh my goodness, that's how I'm edited. You know, I'm walking in the room and the tuba is playing, like big girls coming in, put the tuba in, the music, the sounds, the shock value. And, you know, even when you're on the show, you have no control of the editing or how they, and there were conversations I had where people treated me absolutely horrible. And then they see me yelling and swearing around, and they're like, you don't see what led up to that. Because even though you're on live feeds aren't always in every corner, right? Live feeds are not in every corner. You don't know what's, so you're getting the edited version of what's sometimes happening in the house. And some people are gonna get really great edits. I remember, and I'm gonna be honest now, because 10 years old now, but I went into diary room and I'm like, I'm not gonna be that mom who cries. I've watched, and I even told them in my casting, there's these moms that cry, it's not gonna be, I'm a strong woman, I'm not gonna be like that. And my daughter was only 1 month old, 1 year old, and I was lactating in the house. And I'm in there and they're like, don't you miss your baby? And I'm like, is this happening right now? Like, I got a challenge. And they're like, they're pushing me to cry the whole time in the diary room. And like, oh, and then they go, well, you got your HOH letter and your son said he's being bullied. Is that how do you feel about him being bullied at home? I'm like, stop it. And I try to go in the diary room and hide in a corner. And I would always put like makeup in my bra so I could fix my makeup in the diary room in the corner. So then when I got to the camera, I could just say what I'm saying, not crying. But they kept pushing me, and my edit was the crying mom. And I didn't want that. And so sometimes when you look at, I'm showing deep diving now, but it's true. They will edit how they want you to be perceived to fit in those roles.
Very informative. We're gonna move to our next section now, where we sort of examine the history of reality TV. From its inception, Survivor has always been advertised as a microcosm of society, but the question is whether it truly has been. It's hard to believe that 23 years ago, the first season of Survivor featured only 2 African-American players in Jervis Peterson and Ramona Gray out of its 16 contestants. In 2013, we had the president and chief executive officer of CBS come out and say, the reality TV genre is an area that is especially underrated and, quote, needs to be more inclusive across development, casting, production, and all phases of storytelling. The racial reckoning that began on Big Brother 23, and I'm so glad we have you both here because I feel like that's what this was all leading towards. I'm gonna throw it to Hartley.
Yeah, sure. I mean, if you look back historically on the show, as you mentioned, Murtz, you know, typically we see 1 or 2 BIPOC players being cast in Survivor from season 1 to season 12. And as we've talked about, there's the casting part, which is one piece, and then there's the editing part, which is another. And certainly there's a language part as well. I mean, we could spend some time talking about the language of Survivor being, you know, breaking up the teams into tribes. But if we go back to kind of thinking about the editing piece, in the early days of Survivor, players like in season 1, Jervis Peterson, season 2, Nick Brown, season 4, Sean Rector, the 3 black males in season 1, 2, and 4 are edited as the lazy black man.
Ted Rogers, Tyler.
Ted Rogers in season 5, absolutely. And so we're seeing kind of not only are they casting 1 or 2 BIPOC players, but then the edit is not kind of showing them in a very positive light. And this type of casting continues from season 1 to season 12, and then suddenly season 13, we see a shift.
It was actually 2006 is where I want to go. And in 2006, people forget this, but it was Survivor Cook Islands. And I think people forget that that was a season that was divided by race. There was a Caucasian tribe, a black tribe, a Latino tribe, and an Asian tribe. And I feel like, yeah.
Yep, it happened.
Yeah, it did, 2006, yeah. And so it's in 2023, when you look back, you're like, how did that even happen? Like, how was that even allowed to happen? So I guess where I want to go from here is sort of, I've wrestled with that season because the thing is, on the one hand, I always feel like it's 1 step forward, 2 steps back, because at the time in 2006, you were like, well, at least they're casting from these other groups. At least there's a whole tribe of Latino players. At least there's a whole tribe of like African-American players. But it's almost like 2 steps back because like, isn't that sort of classifying thing? So I want to open that up to the panel. Should we approve that kind of casting? Should we be applauding the fact that all these people got cast, but under that parameter of being divided by race? I'm gonna go to Brice first and then Wendell.
So I think it's an interesting topic because on one hand, yes, was a very diverse season. And we see with that very diverse season, we see who the winner of that season was. It was Yul, our first Asian winner. However, I think that it was good to see the diversity, but going back to the question that we had asked before about producers, and a producer could come up to you and say, hey, what happened today? And you would say, this is what happened. Could be something where you're talking to a producer, hey, yo, Brice, what you was doing over there? And the way that you would respond to that, they can get something completely different out of you. Or if the way someone is just saying, what happened today, Brice? And you perceive it something else. Also, having that diverse cast is great. However, is it really great if who is really behind the scenes editing is not diverse? And so they are going to edit based upon their unconscious bias or stereotypes that they believe. And so I think that CBS wanted to do right, but they were missing some key components, which were having people that represented those communities behind the camera to help edit it, and maybe even in the field. So it's a difficult question to answer because yes, we get the representation. However, is it representation when their stories aren't told correctly, or they're not told properly, or not told at all? So
I agree with Brice. Yes, we want a more diverse cast. I think that any more diverse room is a more powerful room with more ideas and all of that across the board. So awesome, you guys have many different races, but you're essentially creating a race war. Like now you have, think of who's rooting for who in America now. It's like, come on guys, let's go root for the black tribe. No, I don't think that's right. And though I didn't watch the season, I do know the winner, Yul. Yul is incredible, first of all. One of the most smart people I've ever met. So yes, we got to see Yul out there and he won that season, but that's not how you do it. And like Brice said, I guess at that time, because I didn't watch, I can only imagine how certain tribes were edited, or certain storylines, or how the black tribe or the Latino tribe, I can only imagine how they were edited.
Don't even get me started on the rice.
Right. So, yeah, to echo Brice's point, when I was on Ghost Island, I wasn't, and this is as the only black male on an island, on this show that I love so much, in my most, vulnerable and intimate moments, and I'm like thinking about my father, or I'm thinking about all these things from back home, and I'm still trying to win this game for $1 million, and then I sit down next to, and I have to give a confessional to someone that might not really understand my journey, or know how to tell my story, or it's my first season, so I don't even know that the producers are even playing the game, so in their line of questioning, they might be kind of ushering me in one direction or the other direction. So, and things have changed, obviously, post-diversity initiative and whatnot. There are more, it's a more diverse behind-the-scenes storytelling group. But I think if we had that kind of diversity behind the camera to tell the right stories and to understand that certain things should not be portrayed this way or that way, I think that's one good way to do it, but also by not arranging tribes based on race. I mean, that's ridiculous.
What's crazy to me is that it's crazy how you yourself, as a black man, could have blinders on yourself. I remember, well, actually, I don't remember watching that season because I wasn't alive then. But if I had remember watching that season, I remember feeling some type of way about certain people and just being like, oh, I can't believe that I'm not born yet, but I don't like this person. And I remember, I would say maybe 2 months ago, thank you, Wendell, for allowing me to use your Hulu password, but I remember going back and watching that season, and I'm saying, I'm 2 minutes and 30 seconds in, and I'm like, oh. It's just crazy. And again, I think that it's also like we evolve, when you know better, you do better. And so it's important just to even see that, because you can look back at some things in your life, or even as a person of a BIPOC, you are in situations at times that you don't even know it's a situation. And then a year later, you could think about something and be like, did they say that to me? And it's almost, the feeling is like you're robbed of something. Like, I can't believe I would allow myself to be in a position like that. I can't believe I didn't speak up for myself like that. So when we talk about nuance and talk about like guilt or feeling like you should be, it's just so much. But I just think so much about that season because going back and again, just watching it, and again, not 5 minutes in, and then in the first 5 minutes of Survivor, it's like, no. You're like, ooh, look at the green tribe, the yellow tribe, and it's just like, when you see those type of things, it's crazy to see and think that I watched this and I was rooting for it.
I want to speak on Big Brother Canada, if I can. I want to applaud Arissa Cox. She's been a big part of making change within Big Brother Canada. Ooh, they're all working. You can hear me, right? We're really fortunate here in Canada to have Arissa Cox, who's become a producer at Big Brother Canada, and she's actively out there making change within production. And I remember she called me, and how can we do better for Indigenous folks? I said, well, you need to do a land acknowledgement. And then they started incorporating Indigenous images in the show. And then also when Kiefer was on the show, he got to share his nation, his voice, his language, where pre-reconciliation, I wasn't allowed to wear Indigenous clothes. They stripped me of all my Native jewelry before I entered the house. I wasn't allowed to wear Native print on my clothes. And then when she became the producer, she changed that whole dynamic where they went to Damien's reservation, they went to Kiefer's res as well, and they embraced that narrative and sharing that culture. So production can do better. We know that because Arissa has worked really hard to do better, and she wears Indigenous clothes, and she incorporates different cultures in her attire, and she understands because we are marginalized people, herself as well. So, I think that production is very responsible on the things that we see on television. We can't edit ourselves. They are in control of the narrative, and that's really sad. So better practices need to happen to really reflect society.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Suzette. And Wendell, you mentioned twice now you were the only black male on your season, and because we're talking about season 13, and now we're fast forwarding to the season in the mid-30s, and so you think that would continue to happen. And what we've noticed is, after Cook Islands, season 14 in Fiji, there's another boon of diversity. There's a mix of diversity on season 14, and then over time, 14, 15, 16, that slowly goes away. And players of color are cast on Survivor, but it's typically going back to 2, 3, or 4 players. And that kind of prompts the Survivor diversity campaign that many of our panelists kind of have been a part of. And that's where we want to kind of take this conversation to next.
Yeah, for those who might not be aware, we want to learn a little bit more about that campaign. I believe it started in 2020. It's open to the panel, whoever wants to speak about it first.
Sure, I'll talk on it a little bit. During 2020, during the George Floyd movement and the civil unrest in the United States, we figured a group of survivors, of black survivors, got together and thought, why not harness this momentum and make something with it to make this thing that we all love so much and has affected us, good, bad, however it's affected us. It's something that will live with us. Let's try to make this thing better for those that come after us. So, myself, Brice, Jatia, Julia Carter, Sabrina, Jamal Shipman, many of us got together and we had a few Zoom meetings together and formulated this list of things that we wanted to see change. And Jatia really spearheaded a lot of it. She made this change.org petition and we got lots of signatures. Things like more diversity on the screen, more diversity behind the cameras, things like that so that, better stories can be told. And we went to Jeff Probst and a lot of bigwigs at CBS. This is during 2020, so it was Zoom meetings. It was one Zoom meeting, and we wanted to make sure we had our stuff together. We had plenty of meetings beforehand, so we had a PowerPoint presentation. We wanted to explain our experience to Jeff, I was one of, I thought I was one of Jeff's, one of the guys that Jeff loved. So I'm like, man, I can explain my experience from season 40, which was drastically different than season 36. And so we just told them our experiences, and we asked them, we weren't trying to call them out. We were trying to call them in. This could be a blind spot of CBS's. Maybe they can do better. Maybe they just don't know. So we told them all these things, and they took the information and walked away. And for what, a month, 2 months, we were just like, all right, we were just chilling. And then finally, they reached back out to us, and they said that they were going to change the diversity to have at least 50% BIPOC going forward indefinitely on Survivor, also on Big Brother, and just on Amazing Race on their shows. So, and then now we see the effect of that. The very next season, we see the cookout. We see Erica win Survivor. We see Marianne win Survivor. So with more diversity, I think you have better stories. You have more people that are in front of America telling these different stories, and it's being told a different way. On season 41, I think it was, we had Danny. He was talking about his experience with his father and how he was like letting go of some past trauma, and we're seeing that story of a black man letting go of some father trauma from, however many years before. And we're just seeing better stories, and it was, I think we were a small part of it, in going in front of them and being vulnerable, because there were a lot of people that were scared to go in front of Jeff because you don't know if you're going to be blackballed. As a Survivor alum, all you want to do is get that call to come back out there, and, trust me, a lot of people, they just sit and wait for the call, but there were people that were like, I can't do it, but I can help from behind the scenes. I'll help with the tech and stuff. And so that was what we did in 2020.
Well, one of the things that we've been talking about is that as players go on to play the game, there's been a lot of scholarship, thinking about Survivor specifically, although it happens in Big Brother as well, that BIPOC players, don't tend to do very well on the show. There's an analysis that was done by Amanda Rabinowitz and Sean Falconer that looked at, for Survivor, season 1 to season 40, how did BIPOC players perform? And what their research showed was that season 1 to season 40, not great. If you identified as a BIPOC player, typically you were voted out before the merge, and if you were lucky enough to make the merge, only 13% made it to the final 5. A very tough road. And so certainly the Survivor Diversity Campaign is a push to address that, and then we see moments and alliances like the Cookout that are also trying within game to address some of those stats and numbers. And what's interesting is when you look at the stats, the worst placement out of any player is a BIPOC player who identifies as female. And so we want to think about kind of talking about conversations around intersectionality, maybe to Suzette and to Azah, thinking about entering the game as a player of color, but also as a woman. How does your sex and gender influence how you are perceived by the player or how you enter the game or play the game?
It has everything to do with how I play the game. It has everything to do with how I choose to, if I choose to or not, how I choose to navigate life. I specifically wanted to play a passive game. I wanted to keep my head low. I didn't want to really, I didn't want to be in the drama, because from what I had seen in the past was when people who did look like me, if they did stand up for themselves, if they did have more of a dominant approach, they were seen as threatened. Dominique Cooper, she was in season 19. She's a brilliant nuclear engineer, and when she told Paul she was an engineer, immediately she was targeted to go home. So I made sure not to bring up anything in my background working in tech. I made sure always to mind my business. I was sitting in the kitchen cooking. You guys want dinner? Okay, great, awesome. I'll cook for you, I'll clean for you, I'll do everything nice for you. Just let me sit down here and chill till I get to final 3. And I know that might not be an admirable game for some people, but I wanted to get that check. And I felt the best way I could do that was by not coming across as aggressive and being as least threatening as possible. And unfortunately, that is something that a lot of women have to think about. Now in the outside world, I can decide if I want to be petty and say F it or not. But when I was playing the game, I had to literally dial back, and it was difficult.
Ooh, I had a lot to deal with. When I walked in the show, I was 36, so I'm 46 now. And going in there curvy and indigenous, and some people may never seen an indigenous person. And then also just, I'm a strong personality. And so just being in the house there are times when you have to pull back the reins and hold your tongue because of the stereotypes that people blatantly say to your face. Like, oh, you live in Skid Row? I'm like, actually, no, I live in a beautiful community that's diverse. Or they just, people aren't mindful. So it was already a place that was unsafe. And you try to think, okay, yeah, I'm here to play a game. So there are times when you have to do things that you're not proud of. I mean, we play spin a bottle, and if I had to kiss everyone in the house, I was going to kiss everybody in the house, And I'm married for so long, and my kids are watching at home. So, but there are things that people, because it's typically, I mean, I auditioned in my bikini after having a baby, and when I go in the house, everyone's just so glamorous and beautiful, and you're like, oh, I've got all this stuff going for me, and I got my personality, and I'm really smart. But you have to dial it down a bit, and I have a very strong voice. I've been in radio for 27 years, so me talking just normally is loud, and so I would come off as that aggressive indigenous woman, just like someone would stereotype another person. So, you're fighting against those because you're trying to make friends with people, but they're going to look at you, and as a woman, you fall into those roles. Hey, I'm just going to clean and clean all day and cook food, and I did everyone's laundry. I'm like, oh my God, I'm being a mom to everyone, and people can go in the house and be messy and play the game. I can't be messy and play the game. I'm going to make you breakfast. I'm going to make the coffee. I'm going to do. You fall into these roles just to beg to stay in the house. If there was a bottle of beer right there, someone else could just drink the beer. Me, indigenous mom, women leader in the indigenous community, I can't just go grab that beer. I have the weight of everyone's expectations of me on touching that beer. And so the experience is different, I think, for women. There's a lot more to it. And then playing games. I came in second in almost every challenge by milliseconds. You can watch a season. I was like, boom, 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 you're out. But when it came to relationships, I can't have sex with all you all because I'm married. And that kind of was, people form bonds and relationships, and it's harder when you are an older woman. You are a family woman, and it's just, there's more challenges for sure.
And if we could just have the panelists check the mics. I'm being told that we might have hit the mute button on some of them.
Hello. Here.
There's a button.
Here.
Hello?
Here.
Yep. All right. We want to start moving now towards the future of reality TV. On January the 15th, 2015, the Academy, like the Oscars, awarded all 20 acting nominations to white actors for 2 consecutive years. This led to the creation of the Oscars So White hashtag, and what followed was a cultural revolution. We had the whitewashed hashtag, which was asking for greater Asian representation, the Time's Up hashtag calling for gender parity. All of these have been sort of calling for greater media attention on underrepresented groups. I'm going to go to Wendell here. What kind of responsibility do both current and future reality producers have in not only making sure that all groups are represented, but to make sure that they're being represented for who they are, and not what they do in a game?
I think if you know better, you should do better. And now, especially, there are a lot of people that work hard to fight for the different groups. There are so many different groups, whether it's Asian groups, Black groups, LGBTQ, Indigenous, people that are disabled. I think that we're in a time where people will call you out on your BS, And so, and now I think networks and production companies and whatnot, I think they have even more of a responsibility now to be, I guess, more responsible with their storytelling and their platforms, with the knowledge that people will call you out on it. You know, people want to say things about, they want to call it cancel culture and things like that. I think it's called accountability. Like, if you're irresponsible, you should get called on it. And then, if you are someone that can receive, in my case, there are people with blind spots. If you tell them something, they receive that, they understand, oh, maybe I was wrong, I shouldn't have done that, I shouldn't have said that. They take accountability, they apologize, they change their behavior. Then you have people that will be given new information and just don't want to change their behavior, or just say, oh, I'm stuck in this way, this is how I do it. And I think the people or companies that can understand their wrongdoings, obviously, you know, Survivor has evolved over the times. Jeff Probst likes to stay current. You know, I think he's a person that can understand his blind spots and change. And again, not everyone is perfect, but if you're that kind of person that can change, then I think that those are the people that don't get quote unquote canceled. And I think networks should be like that, or production companies.
Brice, you know, returning to the Colton of it all, reality TV is casting players like Colton, or players who are racist or have problematic views, because they're in the business of entertainment. They're creating a show that is going to get viewership. So how does the future of reality TV balance this wanting of entertainment, but also not giving a platform to people who have really problematic viewpoints?
That one is a hard one to add or to answer for myself, because I think that just in general, reality TV is very important, but also the viewers in which it touches is important. And I think of the word that comes to my mind is empathy, right? And I think that we as a society, we as a world, we as people have to realize privilege. We all have privilege. We have to listen. We have to learn. Like, sitting on this panel and listening to Suzette talk, my mind is blown. And I think that we fought for diversity, for 50% BIPOC, and we should be so happy for it, right? But the reality is, like I said before, I went back and I watched season 13 and I was mortified. I am sure that in 2-3 years, we can look back at this season now and say, wow, I can't believe that happened. We have to be able to evolve, continue to learn, and I think the most important part of it is to listen. And I think that, again, there are always going to be, and I don't want to keep saying Colton's name because he probably has evolved, or maybe not, but you know, I don't want to villainize him, because I feel like then that is a part of the problem of villainizing. It's really about calling people in and listening. And so we have to also realize that those people of the world will always exist. It's really about what you do to counter that, and it's really about allowing people the space to tell their story, and allowing them to tell their story is to cast a wider net. And if you cast a wider net, you'll need a bigger net. So continuing to just listen and to show empathy and to acknowledge it. And again, I just feel like listening on this panel of Azah's stories, of Derek's stories, of Suzette's stories, of Wendell's, like, I didn't win, I didn't play Big Brother, but when I tell you, I feel like emotional right now, because it's like, I didn't experience what they experienced, but whew, do I know that feeling, you know? And I think that if people took a deeper look into not, oh, I didn't experience that, so I don't know how she felt, but really actually listening and empathizing could go such a long way. And I think that a requirement for some producers and companies is like, oh yeah, we do these diversity trainings and all this, but like, how about just a simple empathy training? How about, you know, really just applying what you, like, living your life how it should be, or how others are, and just allowing other people the space and time to have the floor, I think is really important. So I just feel compelled. But, and again, I know the panel's not over, but I'm just overwhelmed of emotion listening to you, and just like hearing you being able to go in the Big Brother house and you can't wear your beautiful earrings, and just knowing that move that you did, putting those 2 men up on the block, is like, first of all, that's a legendary move. And why are we not giving this queen the props that she deserves? It just,
Yeah.
I want to thank you for that. And thank you for Wendell for bringing up accountability. You know, when I think about Big Brother UK, it's like, in Big Brother UK, if you watch that show, they cast diverse peoples, different sizes, different cultures, different communities. And you know, we are entering into their world, their house. The producers, these are game shows. We're entering into their space. They should be accountable creating safe space. And in the Big Brother UK, they will evict you and eject you out of their space if you are harm to society. And I think, and that is fact. If you say anything the homophobic or anything racist, they will apologize to the public on national television, and they will be accountable and eject that person out of the house, that we don't tolerate this behavior. And so I think that goes to show, where has entertainment come to where we get thrills of watching people being harmed? So I think that, you know, moving forward, it's good to have equity and best practices and diversity, because this is a world we want to live in, and this is a world that we should be entitled to live in a safe space. And we shouldn't be, I think that producers now are making changes. And I'm really proud that, like, you know, Family Feud is having Indigenous people diversity. Amazing Race here in Canada is diverse, and as well as Big Brother Canada. And it's great to know that they're consulting with people within the community to make better practices.
The next question is for Derek. Is reality television a fallacy? Like, you know, while we're saying that this should be done or they could improve this, I mean, ultimately, these are 42-minute shows, you know, and so there has to be a point where editing does come into play. I'm wondering, is even the term reality a fallacy? You know, like, you can't have a reality show without showing everything that happened, as you mentioned before with the Tiffany example. So I'm just wondering, how do you manage that? How do you manage the time limits and constraints of, like, television with an accurate depiction of what's happening?
Well, you know, lucky for us, we have live feeds, as they say. But I will say, you know, reality TV is reality. It's supposed to show who we all are and what's going on in all these situations, and the good, the bad, the ugly, and the triumph. But as editing-wise, you can only do so much. And, you know, I'm not blaming production. You know, they can only do the best they can. You get about 16 people. I think there's, what, 18 on Survivor, if I'm correct? 20. 18 to 20. So, you know, you get 18 to 20 on Survivor, you get 16 people on Big Brother, and then you get about, I think, 12 teams on Amazing Race. And, you know, you got to kind of edit, give everybody a fair shot to have a second, a minute, 5 minutes, depending on the topic. And you can only put so much, and you got to figure out what you can't put. So, you know, for us, luckily, it could be good or bad with the live feeds. It could be a good thing because things sometimes slip through the cracks of the show, and then other people are like, oh, no, you didn't hear what so-and-so said the other day? I have it right here. It could be good and bad. Or, you know, because the live feeds might not be edited, there's things that might be cut and missed, and then you're like trying to put pieces together. But with reality TV in general, yes, it is reality. You know, when you see those moments of, you know, when you're having sad moments or happy moments, it's real. You know, of course, is there times that we might need to repeat something? Yes. But that doesn't lose the traction of how you might feel in that moment. But yes, just to answer the question, yes.
And do you all agree? Like, do you all agree reality television is reality, or is it sort of like a new definition, you know, given the constraints that there are with broadcast?
I feel that, I think at the end of the day, production, whether it's CBS, they have to produce a show, and they'll do things to produce the show. Have people dress up in costumes, do whatever we need to do, whether it's in Survivor or Big Brother. But putting 16 strangers in extremely stressful environments, and those strangers having no choice but in front of the public but to become vulnerable, and then hearing stories of whether it's colorism or struggling as a black gay man in America, or struggling as an indigenous woman. those are things that people on the outside, we actually, that's our reality. And those are still things that we can capture from. And I think those are the moments that are real. But of course, yes, production has a show that they want to put across.
I just was going to echo that. When people ask me, I say I was on a reality television show. At the end of the day, they're trying to make an entertaining show. At my time, back in my day, they would film 3 days worth of content and you get 41 minutes of content, you know, and it has to tell whatever arc to send that particular person home that night on Survivor. So, you know, all these things that I might have done out there on the island might not be shown. It's whatever it is to make compelling content for that person to go home that night. So, yeah, like a lot, it's a reality television show. It's not, I said it twice already. I was so upset with my edit on season 40, but like they're making a television show. All right, make that, you know, okay, I signed up for it. Okay, I get it. That's it. It's a television show. Good thing they have therapists. That's another
They do give you therapy after doing reality TV, so at least you know that, okay?
I do want to say the reality part. Sorry to interrupt. You know, I got to give credit for our Big Brother Canada family. We do go on vacations. We do a lot of healing and wellness and socializing and making amends and apologies and hugs and all that after the show to create the healthy relationship after the show. And so that is something that's evolving outside of the show because the experiences is like, it's a pressure cooker. And we're all trying to win the game. And we're all dealing with our traumas, our stereotypes, or all types of different things. And so it's not guided when you're in the house. They're not telling you what to do. You don't see production. And so your experiences there is very, very, very real.
I think one thing that gets overlooked for people that may have gone out early in the game is that, you know, Wendell might have won $1 million or, you know, but, you know, I got a lot of time to process outside of the game. So I think that, you know, who really is the winner?
Okay,
I'm just asking.
I do want to say that, just to piggyback off what you were saying, you know, the good thing is that, you know, someone like us, you know, we had to cook out and, you know, we had to talk it out. It didn't matter. Just because we knew what our mission was bigger than us. And I think with reality TV in general, you can kind of see a little bit of a switch where it is now understand it's a business. My goal is to come on here, entertain, have fun, and there might be things that might happen. I've realized this a lot in the challenge realm, kind of recently. And you can kind of see that everyone understands that I got to come here, get this check, try to get to the end, entertain, whatever it is, and at the end of the day, we could talk about it afterwards. I can kind of see that now, and I think that's changed a lot in the reality TV world, because I feel like back in the day, if you did have like some type of serious problem with someone, it was like you couldn't, like they didn't talk. Now I feel like it's kind of changed. And, you know, as Wendell said earlier, I think people are holding people accountable and actually having conversations that are important that you should do, because in the world, we only have each other. We're all human. So we can't all just hate each other.
Thank you, Derek. And we've been doing, Murtz and I have been asking a lot of the questions up here. We'd love to turn it over to our audience. If there are any questions from the audience, we're going to set up a mic right over here. If you want to form a line and come down here and pose any questions that you might have to the panel. So is there anyone who wants to pose a question to our group?
Yeah. Do you want to come up to the mic? I see a couple of hands. Do you want to come up to the mic? Swing right around.
We've got Andrew. Come on down.
Also, some props to Hartley, too. We've been in, like, our own immunity endurance comp standing for this entire thing. So, yeah. All right, so if you just want to say your name and your question.
Okay, my name's Patrick. My question goes back to the success of the diversity initiative and what you guys talked about from season 1 to season 13, 14. how it went from the token minorities to the equal representation, and then 15, 16 came along, it faded back to tokenism, right? And I guess my question is, they should have known back then when they did 13 and 14, like Earl specifically said, you had 3 black contestants that made the final 3. Nobody promoted it. Nobody went on other radio stations and really made a big deal of it then, and the conversation just faded away, right? Like they went back to just Sharia and James on China. Jeff literally said in the pregame interview, Sharia's a fish out of water, so it's like they cast one person that they didn't even expect to do well, and it went that way for so many seasons until the initiative. My question is, like, it's great that they committed to make the change, but has there been an acknowledgement of, like, why did it go back from 15 to season 40, like going back to the tokens? Like, have they addressed that part of it, or have they just committed to make change without really examining what caused it to go back when they had such a potential back in 2016 and 2017 to continue it that way? They lost all the progress, and then they had to come back like 25 seasons later. Just wondering if that was ever addressed by anybody.
Thank you. Patrick, is it?
Patrick.
Thank you for that question, Patrick. I don't think I heard it addressed. Brice?
No, I don't think I heard it addressed either. Yeah. I think my thought process on that is it's about diversity in itself, right? So if they make, and this is just my own, so we clear my own thoughts, you make a couple steps forward, but if the decision makers in the room look the same, then, you know, I feel like at times it starts from the top up. And I also think what helped our cause so well, social media can be so negative at times. Also, social media can be used for positivity. And again, seeing and hearing the stories, I think really helped our cause. But again, I think that it went back because the room that makes the decision, I don't think changed at that time.
Right. Thank you. Can I ask a follow-up, or is that? This could lead into a whole other area, but I think it's important as well about the whole concept of recruits versus applicants, right? So if you go back to Cook Islands, when they made that decision that they were going to make it even, they said, well, 80% of the people that apply to the show are white. So now we have to go out into the bars and beaches of LA and MySpace at the time, et cetera, to go and find the diverse people. Now again, 25 seasons later, there's no more recruiting, or very little recruiting. It is super fans and applicants, right? So my question is, again, where were all of those super fans and applicants at that time if they can build an ethnically diverse cast now with 50% BIPOC from 41 on, right? 39 was pretty close even without the initiative, but suddenly those applicants were there from the fan base, but they weren't all that other time. So again, another question that I just wonder, like, has it ever been addressed or not?
I don't know if it's been addressed.
Yeah.
I think that if you have a show that is diverse, then you'll have more diverse applicants. Yeah. I think if you have more black winners, you'll have more little black kids in wherever watching and saying, I can be like that person. Yeah. And I haven't heard it addressed at any point, but what I do know is that now with incredible seasons like the Cookout and with, you know, so much diversity coming through, I know that the talent pool for the people that they will pull from, it's going to be incredible and lead to more Mariannes and more Ericas, et cetera.
Yes, and I'm probably going to, I like to steal things from people, so I'm probably going to steal this from Azah. The one thing is that, a lot of black people in our community don't even know what a big brother is. And, if you don't know what a show is, how can you pull people if they've never seen it or decided to audition for it? So that's why we try to make sure the whole entire world knows if there is a show that you love, I don't care what it is, even if it's a cooking show, you apply for it. and you do it constantly, it might take year after year, but you have to do it in order to say to yourself, you know, I tried and I did do it, and you never know. So I stole that from you. But
I want to say, when we say BIPOC,
Yeah.
there's a black, where's the indigenous? In all these shows, we don't see a ton of Native Americans. I'm from this tribe, I'm Apache, I'm Shoshone, I'm like all these, like, you don't see Native Americans so on these shows, or indigenous people. We have never had an Inuit person on these shows, you know? So we're, as indigenous people, we're still in the recruitment stages, because when you watch my season, it's not a safe space, it wasn't safe. So they have to actively still recruit indigenous people, and they're gonna go for the safe bet always. So it's still, we're still in this beginning stages. Indigenous people are slowly entering the entertainment world. So that we're years behind other cultures in having visibility or a voice. So it's gonna be still the recruitment.
Sorry. And that shows so much with Survivor too, because 44 seasons now, there's only been 4 Indigenous contestants, right, in 23 years. So again, are they getting the applicants? Are they considerate enough that they would actually go out and recruit somebody now that Canadians are eligible? You know, they could find a Canadian, or they could have somebody from North Dakota or one of the tribes that way. But again, how important is it to get that representation?
We still get indigenous people. Well, we still get people like, I'm a 16th Cherokee and never been associated to a Native American tribe. So they're still putting out those stereotypes. Oh, my great-great-great-great-great-grandmother was Cherokee. And so when we think about indigenous folks, you have to be tied to a community.
Can I say one more thing?
Really quick. Look at the line behind you.
Oh my gosh, I didn't even look. I'm so sorry. Just one other point that we often tend to miss. You brought up the intersectionality of race and gender, for example. Like with Brice, of course, he was season 28, and he was the first LGBT African-American male, right? Like Bill 24 wasn't out at the time, and Jeremy, but the thing I just want to say quickly is none of them also have lasted. So I think like getting the representation is okay, but if there's no visibility, you said how 13% make the merge, right? Like we've never had an Asian person in their 40s make the merge in Survivor. We've only had one black woman over 50 out early, right? Of the handful of black men over 40 and 50, only a couple have ever made the merge. So it's like, it's good that we get like Drea, Suri, like a lot of black women in their mid-30s, but it's like hitting on the same thing a lot instead of getting all the elements of diversity. So I think that's an important part of the question as well, is again, why do we tend to get the same thing instead of why haven't we had an older this type, or why do we have double the number of Hispanic women versus men, etc. I'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, name and question.
Hi guys, my name's Andrew with the Survivor at Home community here in Toronto. Thank you first of all so much for doing this. It's very informative, as was said already, very emotional. So thank you for doing this. One of the things that I love watching Survivor, my wife watches Big Brother, so I'll have to catch up, but Survivor is just the awe and wonder that people seem to experience being there. Even though it's a cutthroat show and you're trying to get people out, there's still this space, it seems, as you watch, to just take in the sunset. I think it was Roxroy recently, you referenced Danny, you know, the processing. It seems to happen a lot. You watch these players who are almost healing or beginning to unpack. I just wonder if you could speak to, for a minute, is there a correlation? What is the correlation between solitude, time to rest, just to be in nature at peace with trusted people, to then allow you to go and succeed, both personally to heal, and then to do even what you're doing here tonight? Like, it's not easy to get up and speak to strangers about very important topics. So what have you even learned about, and maybe even in the Big Brother house, are there moments like that of just to be able to have peace, to go and serve and do better?
No.
All right.
Oh no, we're just not in Big Brother, but I would defer to.
I would say on Survivor, I feel like we're so caught up with our phones, we're so caught up with social media. I think there is a point where you are stuck outside with people maybe that you don't like, and that there are things in you that you have to reconcile. Or sometimes that's when people realize that it's been an issue. So there is something to that time by yourself, alone, and for me especially, when it would get dark, or when the sun's going down and the sun's coming up, it really would be those times for you to reflect and have, I don't know, peace. And it just is a special time, I would say, even if it's only 11 days.
So jealous.
I know.
Like, you couldn't do that. Like, in the Big Brother house, it's impossible. Like, we got to sit there and be like, time for the veto meeting, time for this. Like, we had to, like, be in each other's faces. So there was no way to, like, I mean, if you walk away, it's like, what are you up to? You know, so I wish I had nature.
I'll briefly say my solitude, I would walk down the beach and collect coral shells, like little pieces of coral, I'm sorry. And I had this, in Fiji, there are like various colors of coral, so I had like a whole little jar of purple coral shells, not shells, pieces of coral. And so when I would do that, that would be kind of like me, that would be my meditative kind of to myself moment, and I just collect these things. Another time for me, I'm somebody, I always have to be like tinkering with something or doing something with my hands. And Dom would always be like, what you thinking about, Mr. Holland? When I'd be doing something. I made a backpack when I was out there. I sewed one up, you know? And when I'm doing that, it just takes me to another place. Or when I'm building something, it takes me to another place. So on the island, I had some of those times.
Thank you very much. Absolutely.
Hi, my name's Julia. I just want to thank you for this very informative conversation. As a television producer, I'm going to walk away with a lot of really important information that I can take back into my work, so thank you very much for this time. I want to talk about the pendulum swing that we've seen after 41 and 42, where we had two amazing Canadian women of color win the show. Yes, period. And as someone who's been a fan for a long time, that was really a beautiful moment for me as a viewer. But then, you know, we come to this most latest season and we see that pendulum swing completely the other way, and a white, conservative, Trump-supporting man win the show. So I just want to talk about, or ask you guys, how perhaps the Sole Survivor Alliance can help with that pendulum swing in, you know, Survivor has fans across all creeds, all colors. How does Jeff and production and the producers of the show make sure that all of that great work that we've had and those winners that have inspired people who have not seen themselves not then be trumped by, oh, well, two Canadian women won, no Canadians this season, and just to put a blinker on it, a white man who supports Trump is going to win. I know obviously they can't control who makes the final three, and if there's a bitter jury and all of this stuff, they can't necessarily control that, but what are your thoughts on that?
My personal thought is that what Wendell and I have cultivated and created with having these talks like this and creating the space that empowers the fans and people like you to speak up and to keep having conversations like this. I would love to say, well, I got an answer for you, but I really think it's about conversations like this. And even for you, hearing something that we said and taking it back and moving that needle forward like that, I think it's really how we keep the change going.
I'll also say, despite Gabler's political beliefs and whatnot, I'm kind of weird with politics because I do have my opinions, and but I also, James Jones, I am not a Trump supporter, if that's what. Shout out to James Jones, Survivor 43 guy.
Yeah, shout out to James.
We could be asking him this question, but for real, it's hard for me to kind of grapple with half the country voting for this man, and me understanding, I know half the country aren't bad people. I know that I have friends that are Republicans, that they voted for this guy, and in this world of bubbles where we're all in our own echo chambers and whatnot, so when I think of like a Gabler and what he did with his money afterwards,
yeah.
like, me and Brice sent him a care package after he won, you know, like, that is a good man if you ask me.
Yeah.
So I try to if that explained anything to you. But the pendulum, you're right, it will always swing. After a Barack Obama, we had a Donald Trump, you know? In Survivor, every season, the button is reset, and you have this new group of people that will judge those final 3 based on whatever interactions they had. And I think on James' season, James didn't vote for him. James voted for Cassidy, you know? But
Sorry.
but I just think that, like, I think that, you know, we had 2 incredible women winners. Then we had Gabler. His season voted for him, you know?
Yeah.
But I think we're trending in the right direction. We punch out 2 seasons a year. So I think we're trending in the right direction. I think we'll have more incredible, diverse winners.
Yeah, thank you. And just to like put a pin on it, like I totally get with what you're saying about Republicans and politics being a separate thing, but I think with someone like Donald Trump who really was inciting violence against certain communities, I think that's like kind of where my question comes from, but really appreciate your answer. It's very nuanced and I really appreciate it. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi there, my name is Owen. I'd like to echo the thanks to everyone involved. So several of you spoke about the difficulty in speaking out about microaggressions or sometimes macroaggressions when playing a game. What I find very interesting is this is a filmed television program that airs, and then there's almost this sort of second game that you all have to play afterwards with all the viewers, millions and millions of people watching your show. How does the knowledge that you're going to have to deal with certain social media people talking to you afterwards, or sometimes even on the street, affect the decision to speak up or sometimes not speak up? And how heavily does that weigh on you while you're filming?
Well, we're like a big dysfunctional family in the Big Brother family, that's for sure. There are times when things happen in the house and you get out and we don't get to resolve them all at once, all the time. So there are things you want to say, like I would love to just drag some people, but I have to think, well, you know, there's a better way and we can work together. And so that's why I'm really grateful to the alumni that we have those opportunities. But there are some things that I think are important to keep to ourselves. And that's how we work on building that wellness within our family.
I'm going to go back to what Wendell said earlier, accountability. You know, Big Brother is, you know, we don't get a chance to see it until afterwards. So we have to actually go back and talk about those things. We can't just talk about them, you know, live because we're not watching them live. But accountability is very important. And depending on the group of people that you're with, depending on, you know, what happens in that season, I think kind of addresses those type of issues. You know, I know there's seasons of Big Brother players that don't give a damn and they just move on. And there's seasons of Big Brother players where they go, no, we have to talk about these things and address them. And I think holding yourself accountable is definitely important. I was definitely one of those people. I had to hold myself accountable to a lot of things. And you have to learn from them. And that just shows who you are as a human.
I'll also say that for myself, I watched the show, like I was a huge fan, and I knew about Twitter. I knew about social media. And as a result, I was extremely careful about every single thing that I did in that house. And I also was afraid of my parents. I did not want to see my parents see me have the sex, personally. But I was very, very cognizant of every single thing I did in that house because I knew what social media was capable of. But even myself, it's such a unique experience. I wasn't ready when I left the house, and I still struggled a lot with dealing with people's leaving walking in a house and leaving, having so many people having very polarizing opinions on you. But it is about accountability. It's also about operating on your conviction. What's helped me move forward in it is in the things that I did that people might not seem as right. If I feel completely convicted in that, then I need to have peace no matter what somebody says. So it's been a great learning experience for me. It's been a great period of growth. There's some things I felt like I need to take accountable for, but it's been a great learning experience. That's all I can say. Yeah.
What I'll say is I had 2 very different experiences. I was like that guy during season 36, and I was not that guy during season 40. And there was a lot of praise that I received during 36, and I thought that going into season 40, you know, I would have a similar portrayal. And so during season 40, I was met with a lot of like online hate and things of that nature, especially when myself and my alliance, we were voting out some of the big dogs or some of the Rushmores from Survivor. It's like, it's good Survivor strategy not to sit at the end next to great players, you know, like we should be voting them out. But I got a lot of backlash for that, and I mean, there were some of the nastiest things you could ever read written about me on my social media, and I'm almost thankful that I saw both sides. Like, I saw how good it can be, and I saw how bad it could be. Yes. And so now the way I would control myself or protect my peace is in telling people that come after me to not engage with the social media trolls, or like if they write something nasty, either keep that block finger strong or just put a heart under it or something, or not respond at all. You know, like there are ways now that's just like if they can get like a real reaction out of you, they win. So that's how
I sincerely hope that the positive vastly outweighed the negative for all of you.
The negative just hits harder. Like,
I mean, I want all the smoke, so I'm cool with it. I'm like, what you
direct
got?
all the smoke towards Derek.
Because I got all the memes and jokes ready to go. So what you got?
Also, you have beautiful hair.
Oh, thank you so much.
And before the next question, I just got to say one really quick thing. We have to clear the space. The library was kind enough to help us out with this, so we're now going to just limit one question to one panelist, please.
Got it.
Okay, what's good, y'all? My name's Amir. There's been a lot of progression with casting recently, but I feel like there hasn't been much progression with how production kind of takes accountability and like handles giving contestants of color a fair shake. You know, BB Can is apparently getting rid of the live feeds. You know, imagine if that happened to BBUS, we wouldn't see the treatment of Taylor last season or anything like that. On Survivor, Brice is on a tribe of 6, and he's the only POC there. It's 5 white people who are pretty similar in personality and background. So, like, I guess to anybody who wants to approach it, like, what can production do to kind of make sure that any contestants of color that they cast get a real fair shake and an equal opportunity to win the game? Can they all answer low-key?
If you keep it quick, yeah, we got to go quick.
I mean, that goes back to what we said before, you know, having different people in production, you know, running and editing the show, and also with the games that are involved. You know, I did hear the recent, you know, with supposedly, which we really don't know. You never know. If the live feeds are gone on BB Can, you know, there has to be a real reason behind it, and that's really because, unfortunately, until you're really in this type of spot and you've done Big Brother, the live feeds can really ruin people's lives and for a very long time, and even when they're remorse or try to fix things. But I think with production, if it's more diversified, you'll see the edits that you deserve of each person and where they're from.
All right, thank you.
Hi, thank you very much. My name is Diana. And so my question is about, I guess, accountability, which we've talked about a lot on the show. I'm a recent Survivor fan. Sorry, I've never seen Big Brother, but I got into it in the pandemic, and one of the seasons I knew that I was avoiding for a long time, actually, was Island of Idols, and I know I did watch it, and I think my question is, I guess, do you think Survivor's gotten better at not shying away from some of these conversations? Because I think with Kelly Kim and someone who looked a lot like me, I think the show did a very poor job of dealing with that versus, you know, something like Drea and Marianne's conversation on 42 was similarly powerful, but handled in a much better way, and I think much more embraced by the contestants.
Yeah, I think Survivor did a bad job in that case. I think their first priority should be to protect those people that they're putting on the island. And in that case, there was an older white man, very wealthy, and a very powerful white man that was cast, and he was handsy with the women on the show. And I think if it happens one time, it's Survivor's responsibility to protect those women, and they should nip it at the bud and get them off the island. A zero tolerance policy, you know, and for them to force these, he's a very wealthy white man, but you have women on the island that are younger, that aren't very wealthy, that are competing for $1 million. And now you have to balance your morals and whatnot, you have to check them at the door kind of and say, you know what, I'm fighting for $1 million, so maybe I won't fight so hard to get this man off of this island. I'm changing, this is part of my game. Women on the island shouldn't have to deal with that. And I think I don't know the specifics. I think it took him touching maybe a producer for him to get thrown off of that show, or however they did it. But yeah, the first priority should be to protect the contestants. And no, they didn't do a good job at it, but I think they've learned, and I'd like to hope that they'll do better next time. Thank you.
Hello, my name's Connor. Thank you again. I was just wondering, in a post-Big Brother 23 world where we see the Cookout, which does such an amazing job with representation, we've seen little snippets of certain contestants using the fear of a Cookout 2.0 per se to target certain BIPOC contestants. So I was just wondering, what kind of conversations, or how do you think that as like a Survivor and Big Brother community, we can sort of take that and just sort of make it not just an excuse to vote out BIPOC players and target those communities?
Well, for that, I think, of course, it's definitely having a lot of conversations. The other thing is, unfortunately, like what I've said before, is that these are extremely stressful environments. And how I view humankind is humankind just naturally is flawed. And when you're in a very stressful environment where, you know, you view eviction as death, and if you get out that door, you die. You start doing things that you probably wouldn't do in the outside world. In the outside world, we have a lot of things that kind of help us, lead us. We got some people, for some people it's church, for some people it's their mama whacking them on the head. For some people it's different things that get you to stay in the right mind. But when you're in these stressful environments, people resort to doing things that they never would have thought that they would have done. Looking at the experience last year with BB24, I would hope the people who have been in that house as they leave, of course, they dealt with a lot from the fans in terms of, you know, being held accountable for it. But it's having to let yourself be uncomfortable and have those uncomfortable conversations in your families, in your communities, in the relationships that you have with every day, that you can actually cause change to actually happen. And so it's letting yourself be uncomfortable, but I would also ask us as an audience, sometimes coming at people so harshly instead brings people in, and they put up defense mechanisms, and they're never gonna be able to grow because they're only gonna think about how much they were hurt by you. So I would also ask the audience, as we hold people accountable and point fingers, still do that with grace and be open to have those conversations with people so that we can actually make change happen.
Nice. Thank you very much.
Hello, my name's Emily. I have been watching Survivor since China aired, which is only 14 to 15 years ago. So my question is, so like in the fandom and like when people watch Survivor, just like normal TV, people get influenced, and some people might get influenced by the negative characters of the show and might want to be like them. So my question is, in the newer age of Survivor, do you think people are like trying to be more influenced by the positive archetypes people of the show?
I think definitely. I think with the game changing so much, and we're getting this new influctuation of people that really love the show, we are seeing, in my opinion, less of villains or bad people and more of like gameplay and how can I use this idol or how can I not use this knowledge as power. I think that it makes more competitive and interesting. So I think I'm loving the new crop of Survivor players because it's more about the game and how it can assist you. And seeing a player like Jesse, where he did one of the most craziest moves and sent Cody home, but he was never mean to Cody. So I think they are laying the outline as to how you can play a sneaky game, but you don't need to be dirty.
That was a great answer. Thank you guys for everything.
Thank you, Emily.
So this is our last question of the night, and I'll let you introduce yourself, but Athena, I should say, give a shout out because she was a student in my class at McMaster who helped me bounce some of these questions around as Murtz and I were developing. So I want to give a shout out to Athena. Thank you.
Thank you. Perfect. Thank you so much. It's so nice to meet you all, and thank you for sharing your experiences and for having this productive conversation about the changes that need to be made on the casting side in terms of production as well. I was just wondering, in terms of Survivor, if you think there are also changes that need to be made in terms of the terminology used on the game, surrounding tribes, and as well using tribe names without giving the audience the appropriate sort of history and context behind that. I'm not sure who wants to take that one, but yeah.
I say the answer is yes. I think, again, as we learn more, we should be able to evolve, and we should be able to check ourselves on the things that we might have said that might not be right anymore, or relevant with the times anymore, or even shouldn't have been used in the first place. So, yes, I do think that it would be good to change the tribe terminology, or even give more explanations for why these teams or these groups are named something.
Also, we're in a state, I know in Canada, and I'm hopeful for the rest of North America and around the world, that we're in a state of slowly decolonizing. A lot of our peoples who are indigenous have been colonized and gone through genocide. And so when you use certain terminology to refer to tribes and what, that's cultural appropriation. And I think that's absolutely wrong. You're talking about people. When you think of the word tribes and people coming in and colonizing, whatever our history, whether it's black or indigenous, even within Latin America, we were colonized. There was genocide. And now it's used those terminologies in a game show where the sacredness of our language and our tribes are taken away, and it's for entertainment. And that's cultural appropriation. And I definitely, any kind of mascots that are out there using native or chief this or that, I think it's absolutely wrong, and that we need to move forward is definitely to change the terminology and really evaluate how they're cultural appropriating those games.
Thank you so much.
All right, now just before we wrap things up, we're going to give all of our panelists maybe one last final statement just about today's conversation, why it was important, and an update on what you're doing now. We'll start actually this time with Azah. Yeah, we never go to the middle first.
I know, I was surprised. First, I really want to say thank you so much. This is my first visit to Toronto since I was 7, so I don't remember the first time. But I'm having such a lovely time already, and I can't wait to try poutine. I'm very, very happy that these conversations are happening. I'm so blessed that you all are here to actually want to listen and to want to be educated in that. That's just a step in its own. I don't know if this room would have been full like this 10 years ago or 15 years ago. And I think about the growth that I even had as a person and the uncomfortable conversation I had to have to myself to get to myself to still be the growing person that I am today. So I'm so grateful that you're here, and thank you. Lastly, I will say one thing. I'm having a karaoke party after this. You all are invited. It's at Rose and Crown. So I know it's a school night, but we got tequila. So come to Rose and Crown for karaoke.
Derek.
First, same thing Azah just said. Thank you guys for being here. This is absolutely fantastic. I think this is actually my first panel, so this is pretty cool. This is also my first time to Toronto. I love it here. The men love me here. I might have to move here. I've been getting a lot of love from the men, so I'm very happy. Other than that, yes, please come to Azah's karaoke party. Right now, I just started a podcast with 2 of my castmates, so that's what I'm up to, the Royalty, which I love a lot, where we just talk about pop culture things and just working. I guess that's all I'm really doing.
We're the co-hosts. Come on.
They are not here, but they are traveling, unfortunately. But that's it.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited to see everybody here today. It shows that you have an interest in learning and are allies as well, and love shows that we all love too. Yeah, I actually flew in from Vancouver, and so I want to thank Wendell and Brice for bringing me out, and the team here. I'm still a part of Big Brother in various capacities as far as helping and consulting with reconciliation, and I travel across the country extensively with my company doing reconciliation in corporations and businesses, as well as bring wellness to Indigenous communities. And so, yeah, I'm a public figure within the community prior to Big Brother Canada. I'm very fortunate that being on Big Brother Canada has widened my platform, not only to the Indigenous community, but through all communities. And yeah, now my kids are in university, and now my daughter's 10, so we are celebrating. I was in the house 10 years ago here in Toronto, and so I'm really grateful that, you know, there's a lot of steps forward. And it's folks that are passionate about hearing the truth. And so I'm very Indigenous, so every child matters, truth and reconciliation, and steps toward decolonization is very important to me. So thank you so much.
Brice and Wen present. Brice and Wen.
Yes, I'm just so grateful to have this opportunity, to you guys for putting this on, for the panel for coming, for all of you for being here, Global TV, even showing up. I just am humble, and I try to live my life every day by being my authentic self, and I just am thinking that I'm in Toronto sharing some personal stories with you guys, and I'm just grateful that this reality community has brought people in my life that I feel even comfortable to share. And so I just like to lead always with love. And just again, thank you so much. And you know, I host a podcast, the Purple Pants Podcast, where I like to get into, okay, is the posse in the building? But where I like to dive into conversations like this, where to just show up as yourself and don't be scared. At times, if you enter a place with love and empathy, you can never go wrong. And thank you so much for this opportunity. Truly appreciate it.
This is very humbling, being here in Toronto. It's a whole different country for some of us, and we're up here, and you guys are here sharing this space with us. So I thank all of you. I do want to say that myself, Brice, Azah, and Derek, we sat on a panel similar in Philadelphia a few months ago, and it was. But check this out. It was a smaller space, and it was like an all-black space. And what I think is important is when we get out of our bubbles, when we have an audience that looks predominantly white. Now you guys can take some of our stories or our experiences and bring them into your circles. So I think it's very important, and we thank you guys for coming out, first of all. I also, I do want to thank all the panelists. It would have been awesome if we had Marianne and if we had Erica here. They had conflicts, some things at the last minute. I do want to thank Erica, because Erica said, hey, Wendell, BIPOC is more than just black. And I'm like, it absolutely is, you're right. And she was like, I want you to, first of all, I want you to listen to my podcast, because she says things on her podcast about that. You know, season 41, it was very the Black Alliance strong, but she was the winner, and she felt like they didn't really tell her story how it could have been told. So she told me, she's like, you need to find someone Indigenous or people Indigenous. I reached out to Arissa Cox, and Arissa was like, Suzette, you need Suzette. So we did everything we could. We made some phone calls, and we got this incredible woman here. It's so great that she's here, so thank you. Thank you so much. It's so important, because diversity is about everybody, you know? And so thank you so much. And lastly, I just want to thank our incredible moderators, Murtz and Hartley. You two, they did all the work, you know? Brice and I just said, we want to talk about this stuff, but we knew we put some incredible people at the helm, and so thank you guys. I know I'm talking too much again, but from the bottom of my heart, I really appreciate you all for coming out.
Hartley, final thoughts?
Final thoughts. I mean, I think truly the final thoughts here are echoing what the panelists have said. Listen, be curious, embrace that discomfort, and promote change everywhere you can. What about for you, Murtz?
I'm really excited for the Survivor premiere tomorrow night. I'm really excited that we had such a great panel. I'm really excited that we had such a great conversation. And I'm going to leave it with this. If you're not watching Survivor Australia Heroes versus Villains right now, you are missing the best experience of your life. Thanks to, I want to thank Veronica, Alana, Jeff. We had a lot of help here, and big thanks to the Toronto Public Library. I didn't even know this place existed, and I live down the street, so we couldn't have done it without the library. Thanks, everyone, for coming, and we will see you at karaoke.